I do find these icons to be pretty interesting. Unfortunately, okay, no, the notepad one is kind of like a... Mistral has released two new coding-specific models in the Devstral 2 family. The first is a 123 billion parameter dense model, and the second is a 24 billion parameter dense model as well. So interestingly enough, we commonly see mixture of experts models that have been released lately, but these are dense models, which has its pros and has its cons as well in terms of actually being able to run them on consumer or hobbyist level hardware. Regardless of that, in addition to this release, and something that we're not really going to specifically focus on today, but I do want to make a notable mention of it, is the Mistral Vibe CLI. And on this page here, if we click Enter Terminal, we do get kind of a little insight to what exactly that is, where it's a sort of open source agentic coding CLI agent designed to use the Devstral 2 family of models. This is something really interesting that I think a lot of folks who are interested in agentic vibe coding at home using their own hardware may find very interesting, because if this does actually stack up to where these benchmark JPEGs show the Devstral Small 2 model, which is the 24 billion parameter one, this could be a relatively potent option for users who want to keep their coding at home off the internet and just locally run. Regardless of that, let's just go ahead and take a quick peek at these two new models and what they offer, and then we'll hop into testing them. Now, before we do that, I want to specifically mention that today's video is going to be mostly focused on the larger of the two models, the 123 billion parameter variant. However, I do have Devstral Small 2 in a Q8 quantization running on my DGX Spark, and I will just show some of the results that it gives for some of the prompts we run as well, just so we can get a side-by-side comparison, as that model is very interesting from a local standpoint. In terms of model specifications, these are both quote-unquote open source. The larger of the two has a modified MIT license, and I do believe it's something like if you're over 20 million a month in revenue, then things can become a little more muddled, which I think is probably fine to just gloss over for the rest of this video. But regardless of that, Devstral Small 2, the 24B, is Apache 2.0, which is great to see. Both of these do have 256K context lengths, which we can see right here. And if we scroll down, there is a standalone section for the 24 billion parameter model as well, where they do just mention that same 26K context window. I want to really quickly interject here into the introduction, or something that I did gloss over. They say Devstral Small 2, the 24 billion parameter variant, also supports image inputs and can power multimodal agents. That is just something very interesting, and I want to put specific emphasis on that, as it could be cool to try that in some form of phone driver agentic framework or something like that. We also have a model performance comparison where I believe humans judge the results that they liked better, and we see that it did okay versus DeepSeek v3.2 and then not as okay versus Sonnet 4.5. Regardless of that, they mention a few things down here such as cost. For those interested in using this for API, it is currently free. However, when that period ends, it's going to be 40 cents per million input and $2 per million output. I've just opted to go ahead and try this model through OpenRouter. So we'll do the traditional browser operating system test, and I did also do this with the 24 billion parameter model in the Q4 quant on the Spark. So once we see the results from this, we'll also take a peek at that one, just to get some level of head-to-head comparison between the two different size ones and how they perform. We can see speed here is not too bad. Again, this is currently offered for free through the API, so your mileage may vary. I did neglect to specify within a specific single script, so it is putting them in separate scripts. I'm not going to ask it to fix that. I will just manually place them in the same folder so we can see the result as it is. All right, let's take a peek at our browser OS. Okay, this looks very similar to the Mistral 3 large result that we received. I do find these icons to be pretty interesting. Unfortunately, okay, no, the notepad one is kind of like a... Okay, so the calculator one is broken, and we have our notepad there. We do have a clock in the bottom right corner. Again, with this retro teal vibe, I've seen multiple separate models now doing this retro style. It's interesting to see the, I guess, evolution of their design styles over time. Let's check our start menu. Okay, this actually isn't bad, and I will say some of these retro looking icons, aside from the notepad one, are actually pretty darn cool. This is definitely fitting of this style. So there was no right click. Let's go ahead and first and foremost check out my Nemesis. Okay, this kind of breaks the retro style with this blue nav bar right here, or taskbar, or whatever you'd refer to that as. Let's do 65 times 6, 390. Good. All right. Divided by 9. All right. That did work. Do we get a full screen? Okay, no full screen. Minimize to the taskbar, and can we reopen it? All right, we can't reopen it, but it did seemingly minimize to the taskbar. Regardless, let's check out our notepad. Okay, simple. Again, no full screen. And let's try to close that one then. Okay, so we were able to do that. I wonder if I open calculator again, if we can, nope, okay. Finally, our browser. Okay, welcome to Browser OS. This is a simple browser simulation, which then likely will not work. It's not going to work, but just for good measure. Searching for google.com. Okay, and it seems like maybe it just changes to whatever we type in the URL bar right here. Kind of neat. Okay, so overall, nothing that blew us away, but I'm going to say the thing that stuck out to me the most here is these little icons are actually kind of cool, just the way they're drawn. And again, it's odd to see the retro stylistic elements appear so prominently in the recent tests that have been done across multiple different families of models. Here's a look at the WebOS that was generated with the smaller 24 billion parameter variant using a Bartowski Quant in LM Studio on the DGX Spark set at a Q8 quantization with a context length of 32,768. Okay, so, well, this would definitely kind of support that this was done with the quantized smaller model, although to be honest with you, this is actually, I would have expected better, so for anyone more interested in kind of some of these specific technical issues that were happening with this result, I'll just leave this open for a little bit of time, and then you can take a peek at that. Next up, and something that I think will be a pretty cool test for a few different capabilities of this model, is of course the 3D printer simulation. Basically, we want a realistic simulation of a 3D printer that can print 3 specific objects, a cube, a triangle, and then a circle. We're basically looking for a realistic simulation of the actual movements that a 3D printer would go around in when printing a real-life object. Anything can be used, it just has to be able to be opened using a single script and in the Chrome browser. First, let's take a look at the result we received with the state-of-the-art or 123 billion parameter model Devstral 2. Okay, first impression, I'm actually semi-pleased with this. It does have the correct frame, at least for a 3D printer. Yes, the background is perhaps very white and not as much there, but it did draw the shape relatively decently. We have a print head here and a nozzle, so we also have a bed. Okay, it's not necessarily going in the correct. The nozzle is not moving in the rectangular or square direction as it would in a real-life simulation. However, this actually did a decent job. I will say I was kind of concerned that this may be a little bit too difficult, but overall, all right, this one is, well, it's harder to tell. It seems like it's moving kind of circularly, but on that axis, which is not 100% correct, but I'm going to say this actually is drawing these things. All right, the shape, we're not getting a close shape, but interestingly enough, we can actually see these layer lines right here in between. So this is actually, I'm kind of cool with this. We can speed it up while it's live. We can slow it down. Okay, I'm actually cool with this. Out of pure curiosity, okay, I guess we'll try the final one first, just to see triangle. Oh, wow, okay, sorry, I had the speed set way too high there. Let's just, oh, okay, I have to reset it prior to, oh, I can't reset until the print is finished. Reset. Okay, I'll notice the nozzle did actually move slightly differently for each shape that was being generated, so it did give some thought to that. I want to make the layer height larger to see if, okay, I do believe that reflects a larger layer height comparatively to what we would have received. Okay, now we can tell for sure. So it did implement those specific adjustments properly here. Overall, I'm going to say I'm actually fairly impressed with this result, considering that this is a model that can reasonably be run locally for, I guess, more hardcore hobbyist setups at least. Now, this result right here is the same exact prompt, but run on the Spark with the 24 billion parameter variant here, using the same exact prompt and the same settings that I'd mentioned when we took a look at the Browser OS results from that system, which was just a Bartowski quantization. So let's go ahead and, all right, well, let's focus on the good first. The actual UI controls here are very similar, so this one did include most of the things correctly that we would want, at least here. Now, of course, the glaring issue is it unfortunately does not seem like anything actually appeared. I will just go ahead and take a look at the developer tools window here, so anyone interested in the technical specifics of why this failed can go ahead and kind of see the specific error that is at least being shown to us right now. Sadly, This was the only other test I'd run on the Spark. Now, I was pleased enough with the 3D printer result for the 123 billion parameter variant that I am confident enough to go ahead and give it the Flight Combat Simulator game test. All right, I very much want this to work. Okay, I've not seen a vertical menu before, but that doesn't mean anything. So let's go ahead and... Because this model is open source, it is going to get a mulligan retry right here because I'm very curious to see this result. I've just given it a really simple one-sentence summary of the issue. Wow, this is really, with the quickness, spitting out this fixed result right here. Sadly, the same exact issue was happening with the fixed result. Now, I really just want to see this, so I'm giving it one final chance. Hopefully third time's the charm. Okay. All I saw for half a second was, I understand the urgency, and then like... So this works, and it said it added in console, it added in these messages so we can actually see when we're selecting a specific plane. The problem just is that nothing actually occurs following that. So after 3 tries, I'm sadly going to have to call this result a failure. Let's do some Python testing in the form of a 3D first-person shooter with Python. We have a few different specific things that are denoted it should have, such as a functional minimap, visible effects to trace ammunition when shooting, I can't speak, a functional player health bar, a stylized game menu screen, and then the game should begin by showing the menu screen, and just some additional logic right there. So let's go ahead and see. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is... It's going to use Panda 3D. A lot of times these models go for Ursina or Ursina. I don't know, my pronunciation is specifically on the ball with that, but regardless, this will be interesting then to take a peek at. We do receive an error here, but now we can at least do some vibe code testing where I will just give it the error with no context. It will definitely be able to understand and hopefully fix it. All right, fingers crossed. I'm just going to keep going with this. I will force this result to work. This is definitely where using this through the actual command line tool that came out with it would be a beneficial task because it could probably just see the errors itself, respond to them, and then go ahead and fix them in a more agentic fashion. I know folks sometimes also mention that I should be running these tests using agentic frameworks. To that I say I don't really like doing tests from within command line agent frameworks. There's, I guess, different types of channels. There's the ones that just read the press briefings. There's the ones that do really hardcore, intricate, cool rankings of models. And then I like to feel like I sit just in the middle there. So with that, let's now hope that this worked. Good. Okay, we did get something here. I kind of like this weird menu style. The 3 is so... I'm nitpicking. The 3 is kind of tiny, though. Start game. Game over. The game was momentarily played. Maybe I have to, like... Okay, well, at least we fixed the issue where it wasn't actually working. I am going to just give it this as well, so hopefully it can try to see. Okay, we've made progress. It's still ending way too soon, but it actually does give us some form of 3D. We can see some ammunition effects there at least. So overall, it did manage to actually fix itself from a point where it wasn't working at all. So that is definitely a benefit of this, especially if used in the agentic coding fashion that it is likely designed to be used in. So this does actually bode well, even though this would look like kind of a blatant failure from what we see. It did actually show some ability to fix its code, look at the errors, and then fix based on that and do multiple iterations through that. So this was truly a vibe coding result. And ultimately, we did get something functional, even if it doesn't work perfectly right now. With work, this could definitely turn into something that is actually playable. I'm just trying something different because I really would like to see a 3D first-person shooter game here. I'm asking it to just do it in HTML, so I do believe this will likely be able to give us a more functional result. All right, let's check this result. This already looks pretty good, actually. Not bad. This is kind of what I was hoping for. We actually do have a mini-map as well. Now, if I can try to get around some of these walls... Well, all right, I'm stuck. Let's check its ability to just do some aesthetic web front-end stuff. So I'm asking for an aesthetic front end for my software as a service startup, GPU for Rent, offering GPU rental services with local delivery to the greater Seattle area. We have 3 subscription prices, and our offerings are either standalone 3090s or pre-built systems for delivery only that have dual 3090s in them. It should have modern tech aesthetic and reflect the design considerations of today. So this will be interesting to see how well it does. Oh no. Yeah, I don't know that what we see here would have looked at all aesthetically pleasing, so I have just gone ahead and kind of prodded it for a single script result. All right, let's check out our startup page. Definitely kind of what I had in mind. It has the modern tech aesthetic purple, unless something's going wrong inside my head. Okay, this is actually kind of moving around. So I do believe it attempted to draw a graphics card here. It did label it as a 3090, which is good, as I did say that was one of our premier offerings. Let's go ahead now and, okay, these have hover effects. Let's click get started and see if it kind of nicely scrolls us down to the, all right, let's try this one. Okay, so none of the buttons are actually functional. This looks good. This is kind of exactly what I'd wanted to see right here. Wow, $200 a month for a single 3090. Oh, with delivery. Okay, so you could just steal it then, basically buy it for $200, which could work. Premium and then plus. Wide GPU for rent, instant setup, pre-configured and secure, ready to scale your compute, start rental. And we have a very lightweight footer here with Twitter. I don't actually have any idea what following 2 icons are right there. Regardless, this was rather simple and lightweight. It did do what I wanted with a modern tech aesthetic, but I'm not blown away with this result. As a final test here, I would like to do one more thing in Python, and I'm just asking it to make an aesthetically pleasing stock trading dashboard, telling it to fill in the UI with placeholder stocks and values. So we're going to go ahead and test this one final time, as I would like to see a result here that's not specifically like web-based. All right, let's take a look at our stock trading dashboard in Python. Okay, this is not necessarily something I'm going to give it too much issue for. This is just perhaps like an outdated understanding. All right, let's take a peek at it. Cool. Now this is kind of more what I had in mind. This is definitely a proper demonstration of some capabilities here. I'm pleased with this. I know it is simple, but just this in first impression is a much more competent result than some of the other things we've seen, especially when you scroll down and see that this really did add a lot of information here. So this is kind of what I was hoping to see with this model and significantly more impressed about. Okay, so we can see, we can filter data. Okay, we'll filter it this way. Good. And it does actually show us there. So the filter did work. We see a moving average graph right here. We have trading volume as well, and we can actually go ahead and select different kind of time slices or however you'd like to refer to that as. We also have the price chart here. This is a significantly more impressive result than I think any of the other results we saw, except the 3D printer one. That was pretty cool too. We can actually change things as well. So we have different chart type demonstrations, we have different time ranges, so that spreads that out, and we can select some of the different stocks that it has put in our portfolio here. So this is definitely more of an impressive, I've probably said that a bunch of times at this point, but I'm pleased with this. So overall, that's going to conclude our first look and test of mainly the larger of the Devstral 2 models. As we can see right here, just in the current usage statistics for this listed on OpenRouter, a lot of folks are opting to use this in agentic coding frameworks, which is where it definitely would shine. Considering that it is currently available for free API access and the speed was rather good, this could be something potent to use that would very quickly chew through larger amounts of code, considering it does have a 256K context window. So definitely something interesting to look at. I think, of course, notable mention, as I may have had to interject into the introduction here, we did have the terminal, of course, which I did not check currently, but I was seeing some folks report a few issues trying to run this locally, so I may hold off on this one. But also, the smaller variant of these 2 models does seem perhaps impressive. In the 2 simple tests that we did with it here, the results were not necessarily something I would have hoped to see, but we cannot discount user error on that end, so I would wait to make judgment on that for seeing more tests or even trying it yourself, being that it is relatively democratized in terms of being able to run a 24 billion parameter model, especially quantized, is something that a lot of users likely have hardware for. At least if you're still watching the video at this point, you probably do. So regardless of that, I wanted to take a peek at this. Mistral has been releasing some new models lately. This is my second Mistral testing video, I think in the span of a week or 10 days. So obviously having open source models like this is very important and cool, and we always love to see it. So that's going to conclude this testing video, just kind of a light and fun test. I always do love their aesthetic and their color palette, even though I very much hate the color orange. I do like their color palette. All right, that's going to wrap things up. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.